Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. Toasters kill more people than sharks. My sister-in-law Beth said that. I saw my wife roll her eyes at Beth's statement. And no, really. I read on the internet that last year, more than 150 people died as a result of accidents related to toasters. In the same year, only 3 people died from shark attacks. There is nothing more dangerous in the Army than a newly minted second lieutenant with a map and compass. In civilian life, people with a high-speed internet connection and free time pose the greatest threat to society today. Sometimes a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Beth, my brother's wife, lives next door. She's in our kitchen right now, trying to get my little school-age kids to have breakfast with their kids before school. As most parents know, the morning school routine is like grazing cats. The kindergarten kids are wearing these stupid old-fashioned t-shirts that say, "Too ugly to die." My wife received a bunch of these t-shirts from a lady anesthesiologist from Eastern European, with whom she worked at the hospital. So, both my wife and I love our daughter-in-law Beth. She is a good wife to my younger brother William. They are made for each other. As different as brother William and I are, our wives are just as different. At school, I could barely walk along the edge. I mostly like the athletic side of school. I played football, wrestled, and even boxed a little. Because of my small stature, I was not too good. But my sturdy physique, as well as the stubborn streak inherited from my Southern Greek parents, helped me well. Meanwhile, my younger brother William was doing well at school. William was a member of the National Honorary Society, the chess club, and received many scholarships. The very next day after graduation, I joined the Merchant Navy, served for several years, and saved some money. Now I have a small contracting business, mainly in the construction and improvement of houses. William is engaged in professorial activities. He received a doctorate in the works of the poet Basil Buntings. William teaches at a local university and seems to be respected by his colleagues. I met my wife in the emergency department when I arrived at a construction accident. My wife is a woman without quirks, with a sarcastic sense of humor and a real outlook on life. My brother William's wife, Beth, is a kindergarten teacher. Beth is the nicest woman. The fact that they live next to us is a real bonus. I know she wants the best for my brother William and their 2 children. However, let's just say that Beth is slightly naive and lives in an ivory tower. Today Beth was ranting about how dangerous toasters are. I poured myself a cup of coffee. Hey Beth, if toasters are more dangerous than sharks, then logically, a shark with a toaster is the most terrible threat on the planet. Beth put a plate of bacon in front of my son and looked at me. My little son took a bite of bacon, then spat it out. Aunt Beth, this bacon doesn't taste good. Beth patted his head. This is tofu bacon. There's nothing of that disgusting meat stuffed with chemicals in it. Meat is the cause of every 10th death. Naturally, I couldn't resist the obvious answer. If meat is responsible for one of the 10 deaths, does that mean that tofu, fruits, and vegetables are responsible for the other 9? My wife reached for my son's plate, then popped a piece of tofu bacon into her mouth. She made a face before swallowing. Beth, it's easier to change a person's religion than their diet. Beth just sighed and then clapped her hands. Okay, kids, it's time for school. Everything is in the Prius. I scooped up my youngest son and his cousin in a bear hug. Sit back and enjoy your visit, Beth. I'll take the kids to school. Beth waved her hand. No, it's all right, Ron. I don't want you to waste gas on your big truck. The children will fit in the Prius. I threw the giggling boys over my shoulder onto my back. Beth, I work on my own homemade biodiesel. So don't worry. I threw both boys in the air before catching them. How about letting the boys decide? I lowered the children to the ground and knelt in front of them. What do you say, man? Do you want to ride in Aunt Beth's hybrid, spewing kittens and butterflies from the exhaust pipe? Then I lowered my voice a few octaves to a growling baritone. Or do you want to ride a manly, testosterone-dripping, smoke-belching, tire-screeching, menacing, powerful Ford F-250 pickup truck with an elongated cabin, a power-stroke engine, and enough torque to drag a house down the street? Gruzovic, 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 children chanted, jumping up and down. I want to test Ron too. My youngest son chimed in. I hugged all the giggling children. Sorry, Beth. The masses have spoken out. Both my wife and Beth smiled as I ushered the kids out the door, lugging backpacks with various cartoon themes behind me. Leaving the children at school, I went home. Today was a day of paperwork. I had to deal with bills, orders, payroll, etc. So I will work from my home office above the garage. I was heading to the kitchen from the garage when I heard my wife's voice. Oh, Beth, I could never do that to Ron. I know it's rude to eavesdrop on private conversations. But damn it, this is my home. Silently, I moved closer to the door so that I could catch what Beth was going to say. It wouldn't have been printed in Cosmo if it wasn't true. His tricks will help you spice up your time in the bedroom. I heard my wife's reply. Beth, I don't need any tricks in the bedroom. Yes, of course. But don't you want to turn Ron on? The wife replied. Ron is a guy. To turn a guy on, you just have to take off your socks. Beth didn't let her finish. Okay, but how do you make Ron scream with passion? My wife snorted before she spoke. I definitely don't want my boyfriend to scream during passion or at any other time. The only time my man has to scream in the bedroom is if a stray bullet flies through the window and hits him in the ass while we're making love. Beth continued. Well, at least you should know what words to say to Ron so that he really gets a great fling. At that moment, I walked through the door. Both Beth and my wife looked up. After looking at them, I raised my hand in a closed fist. Beth, let me tell you about the requirements of guys for a great fling. My wife just grinned, but Beth said, Ron, not all men are like that. Take your brother William, for example. Beth, do you want me to follow the example of the guy who let his wife pour diesel fuel into their gasoline-powered hybrid Prius? Beth was confused for a moment, remembering how I had to tow them home. Then the hassle associated with draining fuel from the tank and restoring the Prius to working capacity. Ron, it wasn't our fault. The diesel fuel column was painted green. We both thought that this meant that the fuel was environmentally friendly. I shook my head. Beth, how the hell did you even get that big diesel pistol into the filler neck of the Prius? Now it was Beth's turn to grin. Ron, women are experts at making big things fit through small holes. We women just know our bodies better. I shrugged my shoulders. It's a big deal. Stop it, Ron, Beth said. But I'm glad you're here. I can't decide what to give William for his birthday. The cooking set he had his eye on, or the sweater we saw in the university store. No, Beth, forget about this stuff, I said. Let me tell you what William really wants. Beth leaned forward. What? Tell me, Ron, please. It's a well-known secret, Beth. The best gift you can give William? I paused for dramatic effect. Beth blushed, and I continued. It's always in fashion, it's just our size. We'll never be enough. We'll never get tired of it. It always fits. We can always take another one. It's exactly what we wanted. It's never too late for another one. They're perfect for any occasion and go with everything. In general, the perfect gift. My wife stifled a yawn. Okay, you two break up. She put the dishes off the table and into the sink. I came from the night shift at the ambulance. She pointed at me. Hey, you, Ron, go to your paperwork. And you, Miss Cosmo, the love-making counselor, she pointed at Beth. Go bake erotic cookies for your hubby, William. It was one of those wonderful Friday nights that all married men dream of. My wife worked the night shift at the hospital. The kids had gone to some kind of scout sleepover, so I had the whole house to myself, plus my favorite sports team was playing on TV. Could life be even better? Leroy, my neighbor, was sitting in an easy chair while we enjoyed the game. We had fun, alternately praising and cursing the judge's decisions. You see, Leroy is a strange guy. Leroy works as a firefighter and is the blackest black man I've ever seen. The damn guy is also the biggest I've ever met. With a height of 2 meters 8 centimeters, he weighs more than 113 kilograms, and this is not fat. Leroy and I became close because of our shared love of Ford Powerstroke diesel trucks and our dedication to the local sports team. You know, Leroy, I said, handing him another can of beer. Maybe you gays are right about something. There was a pause when we both protested against an obvious foul by the opposing team. I opened my beer before continuing. I'm even jealous of your lifestyle, Leroy. The fridge is full of beer, the toilet seat can be left up, and the TV is always tuned to ESPN, a network of entertainment and sports programs. Damn, if it wasn't for making love to guys, I'd be gay. Leroy smiled before shoving a huge handful of chips into his mouth. Damn it, Ron. You can never be gay. I shrugged my shoulders while the TV was showing some kind of advertisement. What do you mean, Leroy? I can be gay too. There must be some kind of website or something like that where I can go. Is it really that difficult? Leroy shook his head and assumed a solemn pose. Then, in a deep voice similar to Darth Vader's, Leroy said, "You poor bastard, you'll never understand the ways of my people." He spread his arms. God loved us gays so much that he created many of us. Damn, Leroy. I always thought there were so many gays that you guys could redecorate the earth. We both giggled, and then the house phone rang. I was going to ignore him. Most of the people who call me use my mobile phone. We still have a landline home phone, mostly as a backup. Infrequent power outages have killed our cellular service too often. However, it could have been one of the teachers of the children's camp, so I picked up the phone. Before I could say hello, a mournful cry hit my ear. It sounded like Beth, my sister-in-law, but it was hard to make out anything through the crying and wailing. "Ron, you have to help me. I've been arrested." That was all I heard before the plaintive crying started again. "Beth? Beth? It's you?" I asked, interrupting the crying coming from the phone. "You have to calm down. I can't understand a word of what you're saying. Looks like you said you were arrested. Take a deep breath and slow down." The sobbing slowed down for a second, then Beth's voice sounded again. It was uneven, but at least I could understand it. "Ron, I've been locked up in a subway prison. It's a big mistake. They think I'm a cheater. I'm going to be accused of treason." Beth burst into tears again. "Prostitution," I repeated into the phone. Leroy's ears pricked up. He grabbed the remote control and turned off the screaming TV. "Beth, calm down. Where is William?" Beth sobbed. "I do not know where he is. William is not answering his phone. Ron, you have to come and help me out. I swear, this is all a big mistake. They're going to interrupt my call. Please, Ron, you are welcome. Hurry up." The line went dead, and I stared at the phone in a dumbfounded way. After a moment, I explained the situation to Leroy as best I could. Leroy took out his cell phone and started scrolling through the phone numbers. "Listen, Ron, one of the guys from my gay softball league team works as an officer at the subway prison. Let me get in touch with him. Maybe he can help. Do you have your own softball league?" Leroy didn't look up as he dialed a number on his phone. "Yes, Ron. We gays have our own league." "What? Do you think we spend all our free time making love?" I looked shyly at Leroy. "Well, sort of. I mean, I know you have a gay pride parade every year, but..." Leroy waved me to shut up and started talking on the phone. After a few minutes, Leroy ended the conversation. "Okay, Ron, we have a break. My friend knows the staff who are on duty today. He will arrange for Beth to be taken to a secluded corner and put off paperwork until we arrive. Let's go. I'll drive." We both stood up while Leroy took the car keys out of his pocket. "Is Beth selling her ass?" He shook his head. "It must be some kind of mess. She and your brother are good people. This lady has a heart of gold. Do you remember when I first moved in? Beth brought me something to welcome me to the neighborhood?" Despite the situation, I laughed at the memory. "As I recall, Leroy, Beth brought you fried chicken, watermelon, and a large bottle of grape soda." Leroy smiled at me as we headed for the door. "Yes, Ron, but Beth didn't do it out of meanness. She may be ignorant, but there is not a single evil bone in this girl." I turned off the lights in the house. "I know, Leroy. Beth had never known black people when she was growing up. When you moved in, she went online to find out what to bring you." Leroy nodded as we got into his car. "That's what I'm saying, Ron. They don't make people like Beth anymore. Let's go save my beloved white lady and fix everything." Even with Leroy's connections, it took us several hours to get Beth out of jail. Now we were driving home. Beth was sitting in the back seat and calmed down a little. Leroy and I tried to keep a calm expression on our faces as Beth told her story for the fourth time. "It was just a role-playing game," Beth said, trying to fix the mascara that made her look like a raccoon after all her tears. "Cosmo says that all couples should feel free and allow their partners to participate in each other's fantasies." Leroy kept his eyes on the dark road and shook his head. "Do you heterosexual whites have too much free time?" I glanced at Beth through the rearview mirror. A passing streetlight illuminated her enough to show her embarrassment. Beth was wrapped in an old Leroy t-shirt from the trunk of his car. The t-shirt was so big that Beth was swimming in it. With her small stature, Beth could use a t-shirt as a blanket. The t-shirt was necessary because when Beth was arrested, she was wearing only a thigh-length raincoat. "Damn Cosmo turns all you women into cheaters," I muttered. Beth spoke while dialing a number on her cell phone. "Damn it, Ron. It's not my fault. This policeman got it all wrong." "Of course, Beth. You show up at a famous pickup bar wearing nothing but a raincoat. Then you invite an undercover cop to come out to your car in the parking lot and join you in the backseat. Well, what could possibly go wrong?" Leroy cut in here. "Don't forget that she charged him $20. Beth's voice took on a whiny tone. "I'm telling you, it wasn't like that. William and I were supposed to meet at that bar. I accidentally locked my keys and purse in the car. I tried to persuade the bartender to let me use the phone. Then this guy, whom I didn't know was a police officer, asked me what I needed. He misunderstood when I said I needed to get something in the back seat. I meant where my purse and mobile phone are in the car, not what he thought." Glancing at Leroy, I saw that we were both losing the battle to keep from giggling. "Beth, what about the $20 you were going to charge him?" Beth began to get upset. "Stop it, you two. I didn't charge this man $20 for making love." He asked, "How much?" I thought he wanted money to open my car door. So I said, $20, because that's how much I gave the guy from the AAA traffic service the last time it happened. I started laughing so hard that tears came out of my eyes, but Leroy controlled himself better. "I understand, Beth. These things have to happen all the time. Undoubtedly, this is the main reason why innocent people end up in prison." Then he started laughing too. I don't know how Leroy kept the car on the road. "This is not funny. It was terrible," Beth insisted. "It's like I'm trapped in some terrible movie." "I wish it was the Wizard of Oz," I said, wiping tears from my face. "You could ask a wizard to give you a brain like a scarecrow." Beth tried to ignore our teasing by focusing on her cell phone. "Why isn't William answering his phone?" Beth protested, closing the phone. "I'm going to kill this husband of mine." Leroy dropped us off in front of Beth's house. We didn't have time to get to the front door when a tow truck pulled up. On the platform with 2 flat tires on the driver's side was my brother William's Prius, and also, it seems, with minor damage to the front bumper. William got out of the tow truck on the passenger side. William's face looked haggard, but I wasn't looking at his face. You see, my brother William was fully dressed in a sailor suit, complete with flared trousers. Since Beth and William had never been closer to the ship than the inflatable chairs in their pool, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When William and Beth saw each other, they ran towards each other. When they came together, they began to hug, as if this was a meeting after not a few hours, but several years. As I helped the tow truck driver lower William's Prius into the driveway, I could make out Beth and William talking between their kisses. Drove off the road, dodging the squirrel, that I was so worried. Inspection, handcuffs, a dead cell phone battery. I've been walking around for ages to find a phone. The charges have been dropped. The car is still at the bar. I couldn't call because I don't know your number. I always dial by name. I shook my head, looking between the hugging and kissing relatives and the damaged Prius. The tow truck driver came up to me and took off his gloves. "Hi, buddy," he said, handing me a board with a clip. Can you sign this? You're related, aren't you?" "Yes, he's my brother," I muttered, signing the forms and handing him a $20 bill. "But I wonder if it's too late to ask Mom to do a DNA test?" A few months later, it was evening, and Leroy was helping me install a set of Bully Dog chips into my Ford Powerstroke. My wife looked into the garage. "Ron, your brother William just called. He and Beth need your help at their house for a few minutes." As a family jack of all trades, I'm used to such challenges about clogged drains, leaking faucets, and the like. This is a kind of compromise, because William and Beth always took our children with them on trips that included more than a monster truck rally. At first, I thought that children would be bored if they were dragged to such things as a university exhibition dedicated to the Middle Ages. But Beth knows the kids, and they always came back delighted with the armor, the cool collection of swords and battle axes. It was a clever way to get them to learn. Leroy decided to accompany me as I walked to William's house. Beth met us at the door in a short nightgown. Candles were burning in the living room and a fire was burning in the fireplace. Leroy, who has always remained a firefighter, raised his eyebrows at the open flames. Beth blushed, buttoning her robe tighter. "It's our date night. We just finished decorating and bought all the new furniture for the living room. Cosmo says we have to." I waved Beth away. "Yes, yes, 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 I know. Cosmo said that you should bring ponies, handcuffs, and trapezes into your personal life. How are you? Where is William?" "William? Upstairs. We heard strange noises coming from the attic. I called you because I don't want William to face whoever's up there alone." Leroy turned to the door. "Ron, you go with William. I'll look outside to see if there's any signs of forced entry or entry." I found William crouching under the attic hatch. He had a flashlight with 4 large LR-14 batteries in one hand and a golf club in the other. There was a periodic knock from the attic. Leroy returned and joined us. "Guys, I saw a small hole chewed through the outer screen of the attic. It looks like a squirrel got into the attic. It's better to let her find a way out." He looked at his wristwatch, which seemed tiny on his huge wrist. "In the morning we can buy a trap. If the animal is still there, the hardware store is closed now." Beth peeked out from behind the steps, ready to run as if a rodent was about to burst through the ceiling, and said, "William, can't you guys get rid of him? He scares me." William turned to us and then said in a low voice, "Can we do something? She's not going to relax if that thing is prowling around. Beth loves these date nights very much. Do you understand what I mean?" 10 minutes later, the massive Leroy was climbing the attic stairs, with a matting bag in one hand and a battery-powered flashlight in the other. I was behind him on the stairs. William was standing at the bottom of the stairs. Beth was still in her position at the end of the stairs in the hallway. Leroy had just poked his head into the attic and was shining a flashlight around when the furry muzzle of a squirrel appeared in the beam of the flashlight. Leroy cried out in surprise as he and the squirrel found themselves face to face, just a few centimeters from each other. Then everything went to hell. Leroy tried to cover the squirrel with a matting bag. A squirrel jumped into Leroy's hair. Leroy dropped the burlap and the flashlight to brush the rodent off his head. I was momentarily blinded when the bag fell on my face. William had a much worse time. A large flashlight hit him right on the bridge of his nose and then rolled over and hit his left eye. Things got even worse when Leroy lost his balance and fell on top of me. We both fell down the stairs, landing on top of William in a pile on the floor. Then there was Beth's blood-curdling scream as the squirrel skirted around us, skipped over Beth's legs, and went down the stairs to the living room. We detached ourselves from the pile and rushed to the stairs, just in time to see a squirrel in a panic rush straight to the fireplace and then jump out of it with a flaming tail to hide under Beth's new sofa. Leroy came down the stairs first, for all his size. He turned the sofa, which was now on fire, upside down. I was right behind him. We grabbed the abandoned pillows and started chasing a wild flaming squirrel around the living room, furiously knocking down small lights in its tracks. Finally, Leroy managed to put the animal out of its misery and stop its burning with a well-placed pillow, strangling the flaming creature. Gringe. Then, when I thought it couldn't get any worse, hysterical Beth screamed, "The sofa! My sofa!" Leroy and I turned to face the flames leaping from the overturned sofa. "William," I shouted to my stunned brother, "open the damn window." I pointed to the large picture window in the living room. Leroy and I grabbed the edge of the sofa, which was not on fire yet. William, with blood streaming from his nose, froze in place, one eye already starting to swell. The flames from the couch singed my hair. "William, now. We have to get this couch out of here," I shouted to my brother. William came out of his stupor, grabbed a large copper lamp and threw it through a large window, which formed an impressive hole, and the glass shattered. "One time, 2, 3, drop it," Leroy shouted as we threw the flaming furniture out the window. He flew through a broken window, landed for a moment to crush Beth's rose bushes, and then turned into a flaming mass of splinters on the front lawn. Suddenly, everything was quiet, except for the crackling of a burning sofa on the lawn. Leroy took out his cell phone and started typing some numbers. I looked around to make sure there were no more sparks. Beth looked around the room. Huge burn marks on the new carpet, pillows blackened by pieces of fried squirrel and soot on the walls. In the front window, remnants of broken glass were visible along the edges of the frame. Beth covered her eyes with both hands and began to sob uncontrollably. William put his hand on my shoulder, escorting me to the door. I saw his bloody nose, swollen eye in the glare of the flickering fire from the sofa. William smiled at me with a half-smile, which showed irritation, and said, "Ron, I really want to thank you, but I just, simply, I can't. I really can't. I just can't." Several months have passed since the incident, which we now call the Big Squirrel Hunt and Barbecue. Using my contacts in the construction industry, I was able to find a replacement for a large glass window for Beth and Williams within a few days. The insurance company, of course, played its own games, delaying the consideration of the claim and, in general, just stalling for time before paying for the replacement of furniture. My wife and I were at home this evening and had our own date night. For my wife, who had just finished a 12-hour shift in the emergency room, this meant that she lay down on the sofa in the living room, watched a movie on the DVD player, put her feet on my lap, and I needed her solace. Any wise spouse knows that diamonds can be a girl's best friends, but if you want to score some points for your husband, rub her feet. Judging by the contented sounds my wife made when I massaged her feet, I was sure that later that evening I would make the same contented sounds in our bedroom. William and Beth invited us to skydive as part of a team training session conducted by William's school department. I had no desire to throw myself out of a perfectly serviceable plane, but it amused me that I could persuade my wife to do this. "Come on, honey," I said, still caressing her legs. "Just once. Even an idiot tries something once." The wife answered without opening her eyes. "Yes, Ron, idiots try everything once. That's why they're idiots. Now, if we were—" Suddenly, the front door burst open and Beth burst into our living room in hysterics. She held the hands of my crying nephews. I was shocked by her appearance. She was balancing in 10-centimeter stilettos, and she was wearing a long platinum wig of blonde hair that reached to her shoulders. "Ron, the house is on fire. You have to come to the rescue. William is locked in the bedroom." I jumped up so fast that the movement knocked my wife off the couch. She fell to the floor, landing on her back. Reaching out to Beth, I pulled both crying children out of her grasp. Then he turned to his wife, but she had already rushed to the phone and was dialing 911. I threw the still crying children onto the couch and then turned to face Beth. "Jesus Christ. All right, Beth. I'll get William out of there. Do you know where the fire started? Where has it spread to?" Beth was almost hysterical. "Ron, what does it matter? We have to save William." I was already heading for the door, hopping on one foot, trying to put on my shoes. "Beth, please calm down. I need to know where the fire started to figure out how to get into the house. Are the doorway and stairs free?" Beth followed me as I ran out of the house. She seemed to be forcing herself to calm down. "Ron, it all started in the bedroom. I was doing a striptease I learned at Cosmo and knocked over some candles. The curtains caught fire. I tried to put them out, but William shouted at me to grab the boys and get out. I got to my truck, opened the cabin to get the fire extinguisher I kept there. "Hey, Beth, are the stairs free? How did you get the kids out?" Beth walked behind me on her "use me here" in hard stilettos, still trying to control herself. "I don't remember, Ron. There was smoke all around us as we ran down the stairs." "Damn," I muttered, opening the garage door to grab a 3-meter ladder. I turned around and almost bumped into Beth, who was right behind me. "Beth, stay here." "Ron, I can't stand by and do nothing." Beth pointed to her window on the second floor. "My husband is there." I could see that it was about to flare up again. I pushed Beth towards the street and said, "We don't have time for this shit. Get your lucky ass to the curb now." I used a fire extinguisher to break the window in my brother William's bedroom. It was small, suitable for kitchen fires and the like, but anything is better than nothing. After receiving only a few cuts, I flew into a room filled with smoke. Keeping my head down, I held the fire extinguisher in my hand, trying to find William and the source of the smoke. I shouted, immediately regretting it. as my lungs filled with smoke and I coughed. Then I heard William's voice. Ron? Ron? Ron, get out of here. William's voice came from their four-poster bed in the corner. I crawled up to her and stuck my head out from behind the mattress. William was lying naked on the bed, and, Jesus Christ, both of his wrists were handcuffed to the headboard posts. William coughed, turning his head towards me. Ron, get out of here. I tried to hide my shock. Yes, of course, William, and may Mom kick my ass again, like when I was a kid, for leaving you. No way. Where are the keys to the handcuffs, Houdini? On the edge of the dresser, William said, coughing and pointing with his chin and foot. Stumbling through the smoke, I headed for the chest of drawers, but I tripped over something and fell, crashing into the chest of drawers. I watched in horror as the key fell from the chest of drawers to the floor, bounced once, and then slid into the opening of the heating grate. The creature, I shouted as the key made its way to the furnace in the basement. Smoke filled my lungs, reminding me not to take deep breaths. Crawling back onto William's bed, I started pulling on the handcuffs attached to one of the bed posts. Ron, where's the key? William coughed at me. The smoke became so thick that I could no longer see his face clearly. There's a problem with that, William. Do you have any more keys? I said, tightening the handcuffs tighter. That damn bed was solid oak, I know, because I helped William carry it piece by piece up the stairs. No, Ron. Now get out of here. William tried to kick me off the bed with his feet. Don't, big brother. Take care of Beth and my boys. My shoulders tensed and I felt the veins on my forehead bulge as I pulled on the handcuff. Take care of Beth yourself, I said, gritting my teeth. You know my wife won't let me have a harem. I thought I felt a slight bump at the head of the bed as I was overcome by a coughing fit. The next moment I realized that I was lying on the floor, trying to get up, but my body refused to move. I felt warmth, and then my vision started to lose clarity. I tried to get up, but reality was disappearing. Is this how it's going to end? I thought. I know that my wife will take care of our children. I hope she will be happy. My body started to rise. I saw a bright light approaching me. Damn it. I knew what it meant. I was not ready to leave, and I will fight with St. Peter himself at the gates of heaven or hell. I was trying to fight when a deep voice filled my ears. Relax, Ron. I have you now. Everything will be fine. I'm taking you away from here. You did well. Relax. I hit with the last of my strength and hit something hard. Now I was confused. When did this Grim Reaper get an earthly body? Ron, it hurts. Suddenly, cool air washed over my face as something was applied to my face. The deep voice continued. Calm down before I kick you and that puny truck of yours. I recognized that voice. I opened my eyes and saw Leroy's face. He held me in his arms like a child. His oxygen mask was on my face. William, William, I croaked, not sure if Leroy understood, as he kept his mask on my face. Leroy understood what I wanted and turned us around to face the bed. William's bedroom was crowded with firefighters in colorful gear. The bright lights on their helmets cut through the smoke. One firefighter was working on William, who was also wearing a firefighter's mask supplying oxygen. The other started a chainsaw and began sawing through the headboard of the bed, to which one of the handcuffs was attached. Two other firefighters pulled a hose through the window and quickly dealt with the fire. The chainsaw roared as it sawed through the first pillar of the headboard. When the firefighter started on the second handcuff support, the chainsaw stopped with a growl. After a few seconds, he turned to Leroy. The damn thing's jammed again. Leroy threw me over one shoulder as if I were weightless. I saw him grab a fire axe from one of his colleagues. In Leroy's massive paw, he looked like a small hatchet. Move it. Leroy barked at the men gathered around William's bed. Like Paul Bunyan in the old days, Leroy swung a fire axe in a mighty arc. In just 2 strokes, the pole with the remaining handcuff fell like a sapling. After handing over the axe, Leroy went to the window and handed me through the window to the waiting paramedic. All the time I was sitting on the edge of the fire truck, sucking out oxygen, my wife was next to me. We were waiting for the ambulance to arrive because, despite my protests, my wife was going to take me to the hospital. She made sure that I understood that this was not a request. An impressive crowd gathered, attracted by fire trucks, lights, and sirens. I saw that Beth was wearing a coat over her stripper outfit. She shifted from one foot to the other, trying to keep track of her bedroom window, while a policeman restrained her, ensuring crowd control. When Leroy climbed out of the bedroom window, a large gathering of our neighbors gave out loud exclamations, and some began clapping their hands. Leroy came down the stairs with William slung over his shoulder. William was naked, as on his birthday, with handcuffs hanging from both wrists, to which pieces of the wooden headboard posts were still attached. Judging by the number of flashes, it seemed that everyone below was recording this moment on their mobile phones, then posting it on Facebook and YouTube pages. I had no doubt that soon there would be much more information about William on the internet than he would like. As a result, both William and I were kept under surveillance overnight and released the next day. The Williams house was not badly damaged, although the bedroom had to be gutted, but everything else was mostly damaged by smoke and water. We all love William and Beth, but I can't tell you how relieved I was when I saw a large stack of Cosmo magazines on the side of the road the next day of garbage collection.